Hello YouTube audience. Today is November still 14, 2020, and I still have some time to look at this Japanese maple, Ukigumo floating cloud Japanese maple. It's a Japanese maple with variegated leaves. The leaves looks green with white specks on it, and when it's mature sometimes it's pink, and in the fall it turns yellow. So it's a very interesting tree with a lot of different color in different time of the year. So it's relatively uncommon to use Ukigumo for bonsai because it is too colorful to suit the wabi-sabi philosophy of the Japanese aesthetic. But anyway, I don't care too much about that, so I still use this Ukigumo because I like the unique leaves, which we cannot see right now, pattern of the plant. So I still try to make it into a bonsai. So this is going to be a clump style bonsai, and the unique thing about this tree is it's not 5 trees put together. It is a air layer, which you can see from earlier video when I air layer it. It is a air layer of the top of the tree where you have a whorl that has 5 branches coming out, or more like 4 branches. This tiny thing is a tiny branch from this, but I plan to grow this into a proper branch if it cooperate. I plan to let this grow free and make it one of the trunk of the clump style bonsai. So this is the first year it become an independent tree. First several months looks like it has a good chance to survive this year, and if it next year it leaves out, it definitely survive. But we can see leaf buds ready for next year, and roots has already come out from the bottom and start to get air pruned by this net pot. So it's going to develop very well for the next year. It's probably I'm going to fertilize it heavily next year, and also do the last fertilization this year, and then start its early development into bonsai. But it just finished dropping all the leaves, so I can still do one more pruning for this year to correct some obvious problems. So the first thing I can see is there is a wall here that has too many branches coming from one place, which is going to quickly develop a inverse taper problem or a reverse taper problem. So I'm going to get rid of most of it and leave 2. I'm going to get rid of this one and this one, and leave the small branch. Very easy to cut right now. Now those branches are gone, and I can further clean up the stumps next year. And this I'm going to shorten it a little bit. Next year it would be ready for bifurcation. This is going to be the leader. Next year I can wire it up like this to make it the leader. And this would be the main tree of the clump. And as the main tree, it should be much stronger than the second biggest tree. This would be too tall and too little movement. This main tree has one change of direction here and one change of direction here, which is fine, but this tree has a gentle bend near the base, but all these length doesn't have any movement, which is not very good. So I'm just going to cut it here to make the movement, leaving a stump. And I could wire this up as the leader, and that would be it as far as pruning goes. And this I would not touch it. Next year, and just let it develop, let it grow crazy, and hopefully it's going to do well next year. I can prune this off a little bit to start bifurcation here. And the other thing I could do right now is I can wire the intended leader up so that next year they would start to develop into a proper leader, proper shoot. So these are currently side branches before I prune off the former leader of the tree, but they don't have to stay that way. When I wire them up next year, they would have a natural tendency to grow very rigorously and become the new leader. And this is how taper is created. When you have a main shoot, it's going to be thick, and when you bring a side shoot up and make it into taper, make it into leader, it's going to be thinner than the original shoot. So it's going to create a thick to thin transition, which is how taper is created. I don't have to wire it too tight. I just want to bring some of the side branches up because the lack of branches, it probably would be difficult to do the 2-branch principle here. So I'm just going to wire it. And I'm going to wire it very, very loosely, because this could stay for a while. So the whole winter it's not going to grow, so it's not going to create a stable leader So I may only take it out in the middle of next year. I wire it very loosely so that and simply bring the thing up so that it has some new movement to it. It may not be very obvious right now, but the movement would be way more obvious when I cut the stump off. Okay, I'm going to take this as the leader for this tiny branch, and I think I don't need a 2mm wire. I'll probably find a smaller reused wire for that. I'm going to try this one, which looked like a copper wire, although not ideal for wiring deciduous tree. Normally deciduous tree are ooh. Wow. I may be pruning it a little bit too late. So after the branch start dropping leaves, we have 3 weeks window to do further pruning of the maple, but after 3 weeks they start moving liquid in the branches again, so it may not be ideal to prune the maples at that time. After 3 weeks, let's see, it's a failure, but it's nice documentation of the failure. Look at it, the prune side. Let me touch it and see what it feels like. Has this liquid flowing out. It's not sugary, but it's a lot of water. So it actually stopped bleeding. That's how maple bleed. It's a little bit too late. That means it's a little bit too late. Maybe I'm 1 week late for the optimal time for pruning. But anyway, I pruned it already. Too late to not prune it. So that's interesting. It's the first time I know that maple tend to bleed when you prune it, but this is the first time I actually see the bleeding. It's quite a lot of bleeding. I'm just not going to use the copper wire. It's a little bit stiff, too stiff for the branch. Let me see. The aluminum wire may be better. not using the proper 2-branch principle because there is still very few branches, but I think it's sufficient. I'm going to wire it very loosely. The bleed already started. So the problem with pruning Japanese maple is that it bleed and the energy and sugar flow out of the bleed, and we don't really want that. So I just bring that branch up to make a new leader, and this would become a side branch. Wow, it really bleed a lot. Well, that's an experience. I hope the tree would survive. If this is a mature tree, I would not be that worried because trees they does get pruned all the time, so they should be able to withstand some pruning. But the problem is this is a new air layering, so it's not very strong right now. I thought it was not going to bleed. That's why I decided to prune it, but it's bleeding like crazy. So the moral, I think, is I should prune it a little bit earlier. Maybe when the leaves turn all yellow and start dropping leaves, maybe that's the time I should have pruned it. But what is pruned cannot be unpruned, so I'm going to go with it. I hope the tree is not thinking this is spring. I hope it's properly believing that it's fall. Okay, I bring this up, so that would become the leader. Wow. Let's go to the proper front and look at it. So the leader should go that way. In the camera, the movement looked much less. All right, like that. Okay, that's the invasive work I'm going to do for right now. So one more thing, since the maple is still moving resource, I can still fertilize it a little bit. So just going to put a little bit fertilizer in for the fall. I wonder if the reason. So I'm going to put the fertilizer in the tea bag. Ooh. This is still the same fertilizer I use for the blueberry Dr. Earth acid lover fertilizer for azalea, camellia, rhododendron, and maple. The thing is, all these trees are acid lovers, so they like slightly acidic soil, slightly acidic fertilizers. So the tea bag can prevent animals from stealing my fertilizers, which it's closer to winter, animals will eat anything that's nutritious. And the fertilizer are kind of nutritious to them, so they're going to come and pick the fertilizers. So hopefully, and then I'm just pinning it down to the soil. I hope that would prevent the fertilizer from being stolen by animals. So next year, growing is the main thing that I need this tree to do next year. So I'm going to fertilize it rather heavily next year, the whole year next year. And maybe prune it next fall, this time, but a little bit earlier, given that I see this massive bleeding in late fall, which is a little bit surprising to me, but I guess I'm a little bit late. So I'm going to put in 3 tea bags, so about every 120 degrees, I'm going to put in 1. And 1 more tea bag near the back. This net pot I'm putting it in is ideal for root growth, so it's going to grow very fast. If it survives the winter, it's going to grow very fast next year. Ooh. It really bleeds a lot. I don't know why. Okay. The 3 fertilizers are put in. And I'm going to look at it from the front one more times. This is, I think this is the front. And I hope the tree will survive the pruning and hopefully next year put on a lot of growth, both in the top and the root system. Okay, I documented this operation I did for this bonsai, and I hope you enjoyed too. And I will see you next time. Bye.